Good evening. We're going to tell you a story. We're going to tell you a story about the augmented chain survival. It differs slightly to the chain survival that we're all very, very familiar with, in that it has an extra link both at the front end and the back end. And the first front end is readiness or resilience in the community. And then we go into the standard, early access, then early CPR, early defibrillation, and early advanced medical care, and then aftercare. And how we're going to tell you the story tonight is a bit unique. It hasn't been done before, and we're going to narrate what happened in a small GAA pitch in County Wicklow on the 6th of March 2020. Now, to help us do this, we're going to ask Stephen Cush. He was there. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, John.
Stephen, can you tell us what was going on in Coolkenna GAA? Tell us a bit about Coolkenna GAA first.
Yeah, we're a small rural club there, right on the Carlow border. We're senior for a couple of years and have been intermediate now for the last 3 years. So on the night in question, I suppose it was the 6th of March. So we're just in the league part of the year. So it was a late training session because we had a match on Sunday morning. So it was a late training session. So we done about 10 minutes of a warm up, and then we done a bit of shooting practice. And our goalie was working at the time, so he wasn't there. So Don stood in goal. He would normally play out the field. So he stood in goal that night. And he saved a number of shots. He was fairly active when he saved a number of shots. And after about 10 minutes, we were going to play a game. It was 8v8. So we had 16 in the field, I think 16 or 17 in the field. And I turned to walk out to the centre of the field, and a few players were following me. And next thing, Cathal Roster shouted at me, "Stephen, you may come back. Something's wrong with Don." So as I turned around, Don was collapsing on the ground. So we went back to him. Obviously, with Don being a bit of a character, we weren't sure if him and Cathal were messing or if he was genuine. When we ran and got back to him, we knew straight away that he was in difficulty. He was collapsing. He was moaning. I felt his neck, and his neck was all tensed up. And we knew straight away he was in difficulty. So
sorry, why'd you touch his neck?
I just felt you touched his neck to see what way his pulse was, John.
Would you have any training about taking pulse checks or checking someone for? Would you have any training?
Yeah, well, just basic first aid in the Guards. I suppose member from Guards Sheikh Connell. So just a basic first aid training course that I would have done with the Guards a number of years ago.
And it's stuck with you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. John,
okay.
Yeah. So I suppose there was myself and Cathal and a few lads around down at that stage, and we shouted at few of the players to get an ambulance. So Owen Dolan, then, who would be the team captain, he sprinted into the dressing room to get his phone to contact the ambulance, while a couple of us was attending to Don. And another chap called Cormac Byrne, he sprinted in and got the defibrillator from the dressing room walls at that stage. So Owen came back then with the phone on the way to the on the phone. I think he was onto the call taker at that stage. And the call taker, he put the phone on to me, and Cormac gave the defib to James Cush, my brother.
Sorry, Ciara, can you just let's have a look at some of the people who were with Stephen on the night. They're going to join us here as well. So we're up as far as you. Somebody made a phone call, dial 999 or 112.
Yeah.
Who was that?
That was Owen Dolan. He'd be the team captain, and he sprinted into the dressing room because I suppose all the players had their phones in the dressing room. So he sprinted into the dressing room to get his phone to contact the ambulance.
And can I ask Owen, have you got any experience with CPR or first aid?
No, I remember in TY in transition year in school, and we did it was like a 1-day course we did it, but at the time of that, nothing came to my head at all, so I didn't remember anything, to be honest with you.
Right, but you did what you were told or what you were asked to do it, and
I ran in and I rang the ambulance, but I think at the time I was getting a bit panicky because they're asking so many questions and things. I just put the phone on to Jim, and Jim had to do a lot of the talking now, so I didn't actually have to do a whole lot myself.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So Jim, you took the phone from Owen, is that right?
Yeah. Now that you say it, I recall it, but before you said it a minute ago, I didn't recall it actually, but I do recall it, yeah, based on the phone, I think, on the ground, so I could hear it.
And Jim, can I ask you, have you any first aid training, or have you learned CPR or anything like that?
Well, in 2005, I would have done first aid training when I was training to be a guard. But since then, I had nothing in the guards. But I did do a course in 2018 in pitchside first aid and strapping.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's relatively recently you'd learned. And do you remember who you were talking to in the ambulance base that night on the phone?
Oh no, I didn't. Like, it was the female voices all I remember, but I didn't even get introduction or name at the time.
Right. Well, just before we move on there, I just want to just set the scene for everybody. What was happening on the pitch in Kilkenny on the 6th of March? Don had collapsed. You recognised it was an emergency. You tried to revive him by pushing and shouting and feeling his neck, and to discover that he was unconscious. So you shout for the ambulance. He sent Owen off to get the phone from the dressing rooms, because you wouldn't have had phones on you on the pitch, obviously. And so he phoned it. He got a little bit panicky, if you don't mind me saying so on. Hands his phone to you, because you're real cool, James. Is that right? Cool head.
I think both.
What was going? Okay, when all this was going on, somebody ran to get an AED. Did anybody run to get an AED?
Cormac.
Yeah, it was Cormac, I think.
Cormac ran to get an AED because you have an AED on scene. So what was happening with Don while all this phone calls were going on and somebody was running for the AED? What was going on with Don? Had you started CPR or?
Yeah, so at this stage, I suppose the phone was just out, and he just lost his the ambulance was on the phone to us. He lost his pulse at that stage. So the call taker says, "Start CPR, lads." So we started CPR. I think Colin Murphy was the first man there to give compressions. Sean Smith then gave.
Sorry, can I hold you there 1 second?
Yep.
Just can I hold you 1 second again, please? Just to interrupt. Colin, can I ask you, are you any CPR training?
Yeah. Yeah, in first aid training, I had completed a course in work a couple of months before the incident, so it was fairly fresh in my mind, which is good.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different than a mannequin I can offer. Would I be right?
A little bit.
It is a tad. And I see Sean. And Sean, what were you doing all this time?
Well, actually, at the moment, I was kind of standing by, just taking it all in, kind of getting out of that shock stage, really.
Yeah. And have you any first aid training or any CPR training?
I would have done an EMT course back in 2018, but wow. I never actually sat my exams for that, just through personal reasons. And then I did first aid 2 weeks prior with the guards.
Well, you're a guard as well. So there's 3 guards on the pitch, right?
Yeah.
3 guards on the pitch, and EMT is quite a high level of emergency care. It's quite a high level. So you would be reasonably confident, because you need to be kind of confident at that level. So that's really good. Now, I'm going to bring in the next person in this chain, because all this is going on, and you're on the phone to the ambulance service. So the lady you would have been speaking to, happened to be a lady that night, was a lady called Jen Carroll, and Jen works in the organisation. She's going to tell us exactly what she does. Hello, Jen. How are you?
Hi.
Hiya. How are you? Did we catch you off guard a little bit? Sorry about that. Listen, I've just introduced you. I haven't said what you do or what your organisation does. You're part of the National Ambulance Service, but can you tell us more, please, what you do?
So I'm Jen. I've been working with the National Ambulance Service for the last 6 years. I've done a combination of roles, taking 999 calls and dispatching ambulances. Prior to working with the National Ambulance Service, I worked as a paramedic with private ambulance services. So I've been involved for about 15 years in pre-hospital care. I happened to answer the 999 call on the evening of Don's.
Beg your pardon, where are you based? There's 2 major call centres for emergencies within the ambulance service. There's one in Tallaght and there's one in Ballyshannon. Is that right?
That's right. I'm based in Ballyshannon.
Okay. So
I was in Tallaght for a couple of years, and I'm in Ballyshannon the last year and a half.
So I'm going to introduce you to 2 people. First of all, the first person you spoke to on the night on the 6th of March last year was Owen Dolan. He then in turn handed the phone to Jim Cush. Okay. So Jim, Owen,
how's it going?
This is Jen.
How are you, Jen?
Hi. How's it going?
So tell us what you would have said to him, or what you would recall saying to the guys, asking questions.
Initially, we look for the phone number that the person's calling from in case we get cut off, so that we can call them back. He didn't know the phone number, which happens quite a lot, you know, when there's something big going on in front of you, and people get a bit flustered, and that's very normal. And then we look for the address, and then we say to them, tell me exactly what happened. So we were told.
And did you ask for an air code, or is there an air code in Kilkenny GA? Would they have an air code?
There is, yeah.
And
But
did they know the air code?
he had given me Kilkenny GA in Tullow.
Oh, that's enough.
So that was enough for me. I had the location. Perfect. That was all right. So when I asked what had happened, I was told that he had collapsed, that Don had collapsed, and he was not conscious, but he was breathing. So then I asked if his breathing was completely normal, and I was told no. Then we established that he was in fact in cardiac arrest. This was about less than 90 seconds into the call. So CPR was initiated then straight away, with the assistance of the caller's teammates and Don's teammates, and someone was sent to get the defib. Now, luckily, there was a defib nearby. There isn't always, you know, so it's great to have, and it's great to see them becoming more kind of common and normal to have them in all the clubs. 8 shocks in total were delivered. I went back and had a look at the call, and it was in fact 8. I know I said to you the other day there was 2 or 4, but it was actually 8 shocks in total were delivered.
Right. So once you find out part of your job, you're getting all the information from the scene, what the man's age is, what's he doing medically. You've got him to run for the AED. You've started them with CPR. Yeah. Did you have to instruct over the CPR, or did they say, no, we know CPR, we're fine, or did you instruct them as well?
A bit of both. They were very good in that they knew what to do, but CPR is exhausting. It's very hard to keep the rhythm going at the correct pace. So we have a little timer, and we say to them 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that they keep going at that pace. Because even a professional, after 2 minutes, you know, loads of studies have shown that their CPR is not effective. Their compressions change in terms of the rhythm. So it's good for them to keep us on the line and have that prompt, even if they're aware of CPR and how to do it.
It turns out it was an extremely fortunate situation in that we have 3 guards who have no CPR. We have a chap who just done CPR training all there, and you coaching them. So obviously when you're coaching them and the note, it's much easier, much more effective, I would imagine, for the patients as well. But then your role is
a great combination.
Indeed, yeah.
But the defib then advised, it said no shock advised. This was after the 8 and after all the cycles of chest compressions. And you know, your heart kind of sinks a little when you hear no shock advised, because more often than not, that's not a great sign. Yeah. You know, but in this case, it was. Don had his own rhythm back, you know, and was lucky enough to come out of it. He was one of the 7% that, you know, do well out of hospital cardiac arrest.
If I could just bring back a little bit, okay, you have everything going on scene. You're talking to James. James is instructing the guys, the CPR. The AED's on the way. You're listening over the phone. You can hear the AED doing its thing. Now something else has to happen. We have to get we've already completed the first 3 links in the chain of survival. We have early CPR, early access, early CPR going on, early AED. Now we need to get advanced care. So what happens? How does that all happen?
Well, while the CPR was going on and while the shocks were being delivered, there was already help on the way. Right. So there was 2 ambulances.
How does that happen? Sorry, how does that happen?
So the dispatcher will look at the screen, look at the closest resources.
So do you hit a button on your screen, say emergency in Kilkenny, or how does all that work?
No, so it'll come up automatically on the dispatcher screen. Every dispatcher has their own area. Like for example, I'm covering the Midwest tonight. I've someone covering me at the moment, but I'm on the Midwest tonight, which would be Tipperary, Clare, Limerick.
So you pass it over to the dispatcher.
Yeah, so when a call comes in for that area, it comes up automatically on the dispatcher's screen. So once
so the dispatcher that night was Orna. And Orna's not based in Ballyshannon, she's actually based in Tala. So you're a long way away from each other.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
correct.
She's doing all this work. There's Orna. Hi, Orna.
Hi.
So Orna's is doing all this work in the background. Orna, you're very welcome. Orna, could you tell us? Jen has just been telling us what you do, and when she passed the call over to you, or it gets past you automatically. What's your job in
So after she's processed the call and she's generated a code, then the call comes over to my screen. And then on my screen, what I do is I look at the other resources that are around the call, and you want to send the closest resource to that call. So that's essentially my job, is to make sure that the closest resource is aware of that call and that they're en route to that call and that they have all the details about that call. So I'm just in between the call taker and the crew.
So can I say, you're looking at a screen, are you looking at a map then, and you can see, are the GPS located resources, we call them, ambulances or paramedics around, and you're looking at that? Okay.
I can see where everybody is. And then I look at the call and I want to make sure that I'm sending the closest resource to that call. I want to make sure if it's an ambulance, if it's a car, if it's a ICV, that we are sending it to that call, that somebody is responding and that they're the closest resource. So at this time, it was the Carlow crews that were the closest resource for this call. So I notify them, they get a buzz on their handhelds then to tell them that they've been assigned a call, and then they're told, then I'm sending Jen the details. It's all the information that Jen is giving me, and I'm just passing it over to the crew so that they know what to expect when they arrive on scene. So they get the general details, they get the location, they get the fastest route there, and they get told what other resources will be attending, who else is going to help, who's at scene, what has already happened before they arrive. We try to give them as much information as we possibly can.
So you're doing all that in the background. Jen is on the phone to Owen, or beg your pardon, to James, and she's continuing making sure that everything that's happening on scene is okay. And you're gathering all these emergency, other, let's say, advanced medical care resources aimed at the emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
So while she's reassuring the caller, I'm the person that's talking to the crews and getting them involved in the updating them, telling them exactly what's happening, giving them all the information that Jen is passing towards us so that they know exactly what's happening as well. Okay. So what the call taker says to Jen then gets patched through to the crew so they know exactly what's happening.
Brilliant. Okay, back to you, Stephen. So all this is going on. You don't know this is going on because somebody, James is on the phone to the National Emergency Operation Control. That's all happening in the background. You're still there in Kilkenny, and the CPR is going on. Jen said earlier on that CPR is exhausting. So, and we know this, that if you do it for a long period of time, you can just get tired without knowing it. So, but you were switching people around on scene, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I think we were automatically switching ourselves. I think Colin started. I think Carl Roster was in next there. I think I think when Colin was on the first breaths, I think Jim actually had the defib ready to go when we were just on the first set of compressions. Jim actually had the defib ready to go, so that was on then straight away, very quick. So obviously then there was a shock advised first. So then the first shock was given, and then the CPR then was rotated from there on in. There was Colin, Cathal Roster, Jim Cush, and myself. And we rotated that CPR then while Sean Smith done the breaths. And I think possibly maybe, I'm not sure the exact time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes then, the first responders came at scene, and you had Simon and Annie Enright, and you had Tommy Byrne came at scene at that stage.
Brilliant. Can I stop you there for 1 second now, because all of this is going on. But what's going on? What else is going on in the area? I know because I've been talking to people that the drums start beating and people start getting phone calls. I know Don's brother was on scene and he phoned his partner Samantha, who phoned Don's mother. I don't know how Ashling, his sister, was contacted, but she was there as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So obviously, yeah, emotions were starting to run high, but obviously, Geraldine and Ashling and Ben, they both had, I suppose, the common sense to leave it, stay away from the scene, and leave us to maybe try and do our best with Don. And I think there's a lot of footballers as well as seeing that maybe, again, we're consoling, I suppose, for want of a better word, I suppose we're caring for Geraldine and Ashling that scene there, and as well maybe again keeping an arm around Benny, making sure Benny was okay.
Yes, it's a small community as well, and you all know each other and you all see each other on a regular basis, and the GAA is a great centre for that community as well. So all this is going on, and there's more people coming in, more relatives coming in, more help is coming as well. You mentioned Jared Byrne there, he's coming in. I know John Keogh was doing a lot of work in the background as well, but something else very happened as well. I don't know if it was Jen or Orna who orchestrated, but somebody got sent to Coolkenner Crossroads to help direct the ambulance in. Who was that?
Yeah, I think Owen Dolan as well maybe took initiative amongst himself as well. Owen obviously had rang the ambulance and he went down to the Crossroads, which is about a mile from the field, and Owen drove down to the Crossroads to make sure the ambulance didn't take any wrong turns. And then there was another team player, Niall Bailey, stood out on the road just to make sure that the ambulance got there as quick as they could. Like there was no wrong turns taken.
Yeah, I actually asked for someone to go to flag down the ambulance, and they had already taken the initiative themselves and gone to flag the crew down, which was great.
That was brilliant. That was, someone was thinking that was, and that's such an important thing, Jen, isn't it? It's such a little thing, but it's so important. Yeah, it's so important because you're cutting seconds off or minutes off, and I'm taking a wrong turn, or the GPS not working or whatever. Or I know the GAA pitch down there, sometimes you could drive by because the gate used to be recessed in a little bit, so you could drive by it if you weren't watching, and it was at night obviously as well. So anyhow, so all this is going on and the CFRs arrives. That was Annie and Simon, and Annie and Simon Enright actually, and they've been CFRs in Ballyconnell for many years now, I know at this stage, and they're coming in there. Yeah. Hi Simon and Annie, how are you guys? We're just talking about you there. I happen to know from speaking to you, you actually weren't on call. You've been on call all week, and you decided you're going to take a night off Friday night, and about 8 o'clock or so, you just turned off the phone, and you weren't actually on call. So how did you hear about the emergency in the GAA pitch?
John Keogh actually called to our house to let us know. So
did he call on the phone, or did he bang on the door, or what?
No, he knocked on the door, and we grabbed our gear and headed up to the pitch.
Good.
And you arrived on the pitch. You arrived at the pitch. Okay, what was the scene on the pitch at that stage? Stephen reckons there was about 10 or 12, maybe 13 minutes into the call at that stage when you lads arrived. So what was going on? What did you see?
Well, as we pulled up in the car, I could see one shot going in, which was encouraging. So we just grabbed the bag, ran over, asked. I'm not sure who I asked what had happened. Got a bit of a handover. Asked him any shocks had gone in, and just slotted in with the guys doing CPR.
Yeah, unbeknownst to the guys, they probably didn't realise, but we know as responders, we know what they were actually doing was called pit crew CPR, unknowingly, but that's what they were doing.
Yeah,
they were rotating. So, and we trained for that, so you recognise that straight away, and you just slotted in as you do. You slot in to keep the compression quality up, and then it just rolled on. It kept on going like that. So you helped with the CPR and then you assisted the CPR as well. Is that correct?
That's it, John. That's exactly what we did. And
so all this is going on, and Jen and Orna, they're doing their thing in the background, and the AMS is on the way. On the AMS crew that night, I know there was Margaret Murphy and Jason Doyle, and Jason actually can't be with us tonight. He's actually working. He got no one to cover him, Jen, unlike you. He had to work. So So we're actually going to we've made a little video with Jason. He's going to give us a few words now. Jason, hi, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Margaret is joining us here as well. But I really appreciate you were working the night we were recording with everybody else. So I do appreciate you giving us your downtime to record this piece for the arrest in Ballyconnell on the 6th of March last year. Can you tell me, Jason, what's actually going through your mind when first of all you get the call and you're on station and you start en route to the call? What's going through your mind?
Was it a witness to an arrest? If not witness, how long ago were the last seen alive? And en route, once we've established that, is there CPR ongoing? Is it good quality? Then what resources are available to us? Where are the local ED, and where is the closest definitive care? Sometimes it's Waterford, sometimes it's Dublin. And at night, it's different. It's always ground transport. But if it's during the day, we will try mobilise Rescue 112 or 113 to see if we can get them to appropriate treatment as quicker than we could on the road. But mainly is to have that good quality CPR ongoing, and hopefully there's an AED available. It gives the patient the best chance of survival because it buys us time to get out there, because sometimes we're 20, 40 minutes away from a call. And as long as there's good CPR, you have good perfusion, and patient's quality of life and, what would you say, the outcome for the patient would be by far better the quicker all this is carried out.
Yeah.
And like we've seen in 1 or 2 cases where good quality CPR, by the time we get there, usually we'll get a relatively good outcome.
Brilliant. Listen, thanks very much for that. And I'm going to pop over now and talk to Margaret. Listen, Jason, thank you very much for all your time. Best wishes.
No problem. Thanks, John.
Listen, Margaret, how are you? We just had a few words from Jason Doyle there. Jen and Orna have been telling us that you've been dispatched. You were on base, I think. Were you in Carlow or near Carlow when you got the call?
We were in Carlow at the base, Jason and myself.
So do you know that area at all? You know, your base in Carlow, you're probably reasonably familiar with it.
Yeah. Yeah, we knew we were going, so it came up. We were mail in cardiac arrest and CPR was in progress. So going out then, we knew the other Carlow crew, there was a second Carlow crew that were already tasked to a call, were stood down to come and support us, John Dial and Denise Byrne. And we knew ALS was being sent. I don't know if we knew that it was Mac was coming.
Sorry, beg your pardon. What's ALS? Can you tell me? What's ALS?
Oh, like an advanced paramedic, advanced life support. Yeah.
Okay. So you have certain skills as a paramedic, but this is another level, another higher level. Would that be a fair way of putting it? Yeah,
an advanced paramedic.
Advanced paramedic. Okay.
So they can give drugs, more drugs than we can give. Cardiac drugs and stuff.
Okay.
So on the journey out then, we were getting updates. We knew the CPR was in progress. The shocks, the number of shocks were starting to come up on the screen. 1 shock, 2 shocks. I thought we went to 6. Jason thought we'd gone to 7. When we came to the cross then in Coolkenna, there was somebody there to direct us down to the football pitch. And when we arrived then, CPR was in progress. We took out our resus bag, which would be oxygen and BVM and stuff, and our life pack to monitor, and the AEDs on it. So went over, checked, there was a pulse present. When we put on our pads, then the patient had a rhythm. So like a ROSC had been achieved.
Sorry, can I hold you for 1 second? So you didn't shock Don.
No.
And you put on your pack.
No,
so he was already, his heart was beating again at that stage.
Yes.
So that was down to the efforts of the guys on the pitch and everybody there before you. Would that be correct or fair?
Oh yeah, and the AED, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's phenomenal, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, it's the only saves we have are when people do CPR straight away, and the AED is there very quickly.
Wow. So sorry, just continue there. You have taken out your life pack. That's your big fancy AED. and you put on yours. Is that correct?
Sorry, I missed that. We connect them to.
You take out your big fancy AED. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so yeah, we connected them to our pads. We didn't need to shock them. By this stage, the other Carlow crew had arrived. We'd got a quick handover from the first responders on scene as to what had happened. So the other Carlow crew had come, so we loaded the patient and started, oxygen, doing a tracing of the heart. Then somebody else was getting like a full, ample history, what had happened, medications, personal details. And when we did the 12-lead tracing, it came up as a STEMI, which is an ST elevated MI. And if we are within 90 minutes of a PCI centre, a cath lab, we're to go to the cath lab with the patient because they can do the angio and if can fit stents if needed. So we transmitted that to St. James's Hospital. By that stage, Mac had probably arrived. The patient then starts to become very combative. And then a doctor from the care doc service arrived then as well. So we all just kind of helped, and he was given drugs to sedate him. And then we were starting to go. So it was the smoothest journey. So we were going back into Tullow and up the M9, but we had to stop in Tullow again because he was still remaining to be very combative. And it was very hard to hold him down. So then obviously we gave an update to St. James's Hospital, and we were told that we were to go to A&E in St. James's. We weren't to go directly to the cath lab, as is often the case. So we travelled to James's with the patient, who still was very combative, arrived in James's and went in and handed him over.
Well, I know you're saying he's combative, but he's a cool kind of GA player. I don't know what you're expecting, But I'm going to bring it back a little bit to when McCartan Hughes arrived. So when McCartan arrived, you had your life pack on, and you're probably doing your 12 lead. Then you give a handover to Mac. And what would that actually, when Mac comes in, or is he with us? Mac, how are you? We were just talking about you there. I was going to get Margaret to explain to me when you arrive on scene, what's your role? What's the first thing you do when you arrive on scene and you see everything going on? What's the first thing you do?
Well, generally it's to try and get a picture of what has happened up to date. And on this occasion, pretty much as soon as I arrived, most of the work was done. So I had very little to do. There was 2 ambulances on scene. Don was in the back of one of them. There was a care doc car parked on scene. And when I got into the ambulance, there was a GP there from care doc. So collectively, we all had a chat between the crews that were managing the patient, myself and the GP. Patient was a little bit agitated, which occurs post ROSC at times. I cannulated him, and we agreed to start him on some mild sedatives, midazolam. We discussed where we were going with him. And then we set out for St. James's, the PCI centre in James's.
Right. Okay, then you hand basically, and the rest is history. You hand over to St. James's. I'm going to bring in Geraldine now. Geraldine's mum and Aisling, his sister. Geraldine arrived late at the pitch side, and Aisling the day before. And due to the camaraderie, I suppose, and the community. Geraldine, how are you? I was just talking about you there.
Oh.
I was just saying, how did you find out that? Are you with us, Geraldine? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
So I was just wondering, how did you find out that there was an emergency at the GA pitch?
And Ben, my son, who was there on the pitch, he rang his partner, Samantha, and she called me. So that was how I heard.
And I know they asked this on TV the whole time. How did you feel when you arrived on pitch? I know exactly how you felt. I can pretty much relate to it. So you arrived on the scene and you saw everything going on there, and I'm sure you must have been in shock because it was Don's a young, healthy man, no history of bad health or anything, active, sporty, all these things. Yeah.
Yeah, all of those things. So I knew it was pretty serious. I thought he'd had a heart attack because of the collapse. I did think, but I didn't actually think it was as serious as it was until I got to the field. And I saw I stayed away from it because I knew the guys were working on him and that. So,
yeah, your daughter Aisling was there as well. Your daughter Aisling was there as well.
Yeah. Right. Hi.
Aisling, hi, how are you? Listen, I know it's such a short time ago, and I know you were there on the pitch side, and it must have been horrific to see your brother in that state on such an ordinary evening, and guys down training, having fun, then something like this has to happen. I know the community rallied round, and they were looking after you. That's what we like to say in the country, you're being looked after. But is Don going to join us? Is he around? Is he going to stick his head in?
No, he's not going to join us, so he's not. He's
okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Listen, all I can say is I'm gonna close it up now. Listen, it's amazing to hear you all tell your stories, and you all did everything separately, but the whole thing was a team effort. And during the course of our conversations over the last few days and weeks, one or two of you and other people have said, wasn't he a lucky man? Wasn't he a lucky man? Well, I have another view. I won't say it's a different view. I just say it's another view about Don being lucky. It wasn't lucky that there happened to be 3 guards there that night who knew CPR and had some training. That's the guarded training. It wasn't luck that Cahill knew CPR. That's his work training him as well. And it wasn't luck that we have an emergency service that when you dial 999, you get instructions over the phone to tell you exactly what to do. That's the system that the National Ambulance Service has put in place. And then it's not luck that we have somebody who can look at a screen, see the resources that can attend an emergency in a very, very short space of time. That's the use of technology, and that's been getting better and better and better over the years with the National Ambulance Service. That's not luck. That's development and use of technology. It wasn't luck that there's the community first responders there. The National Ambulance Service started a national initiative back in 2004. To try and establish community first responder schemes across the country. It wasn't luck that we had people like McCartan Hughes there, an advanced paramedic with those skills. That's training and foresight within the Ambulance Service many years ago to have as many advanced paramedics around the country. None of this was luck. It wasn't luck that there was an AD in the clubhouse that night. That was an initiative brought forward back in 2004 by the GAA to try and install an AD in each GAA club in the country. None of this was luck. This was all strengthening this chain of survival and creating resilience in the community. The only thing I would suggest, if I may, that was luck on the night is that Don arrested in front of all of you. That was the lucky bit. And the rest is the system, this chain of survival. And you guys all played such an important part. And you and others are just not here with us tonight. So it is an honor to talk to you all tonight. I know we've gone on a little bit, but it's a fabulous story. And it's never been done like this before. So hopefully people get to see it and get to realize maybe there's something they could do in their community. Because if anybody knows Coolkenno, it's a very, very rural area. And yes, you wouldn't expect a successful outcome for something as serious as this. And because of all of you and the part you played, there's a young man still tending his cattle and still playing football. I believe he's back playing football. And he's looking to tug out again this year. So yeah, none of that would have happened except for all of you guys. So listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. And thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody.